open it and look, as if she just went to school and came back and all her mess is still right there, just like she left it. Our story began with the start of very serious pain, but she wasn't a little kid. She was 13. And when we pulled up to the office and she read the sign that said oncologist, of course, her first question was, "Why are we here?" My daughter's name was Emma. Emmy, I called her. She was special. Not every adult could walk through what this teenage girl walked through. I met my husband back when we were kids. He was 16. I was almost 20. We dated for 8 years, then got married. I got pregnant almost right away. Of course she was wanted. Everything was wonderful. Emmy was a very calm child, never difficult. She was absolutely wild about animals. She wanted a cat. She wanted a dog. For a while, it was pet rats. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She was obsessed with collecting Monster High dolls. Not to play with, just to display them. About 6 months before the diagnosis, after practices, she started having pain in her hip area. She'd come home from training and just mentioned that it hurt right there. Since we were so active, going to practices all the time, the doctors kept saying she'd pulled a muscle or strained a ligament. In June, they told us, well, we can give you a referral for an MRI, but the earliest slot is in December. We never made it to that December appointment because by August, we were already at St. Jude's. She'd been at summer camp, running around during the day, participating in every competition and dance activity. But at night, the pain was torturing her. I didn't know then that nighttime pain is one of the signs of cancer. And I won't hide it. Back in June, we'd had an X-ray done at the pediatrician's office. They told us everything looked fine. Even after the biopsy, the doctor who performed it told me, visually, it's maybe 40% cancer and 60% not cancer. Emma's case was one where the pain was constant and severe from the start. She wasn't sleeping at night. Then we got to St. Jude's. They did a biopsy. And because of it, she had a pathological fracture because the bone was already being destroyed, because they disturbed it. And there was just this overwhelming pain, and they put us on morphine from the very beginning before the diagnosis was even confirmed. And there you are, standing right next to her, feeling completely helpless. You don't know how to help. There's fear in me. There's fear in her. And that makes it even worse because you can't answer the questions. You don't know how you yourself are going to get through all of this, let alone how to support your child. Ewing sarcoma, left pelvic bones. Of course, you read everything about survival rates, about the prognosis. When they tell you the diagnosis, you ask the doctor. From the beginning, they told me our chances were not good. Removing the bones from the pelvis wasn't possible. Not possible in conditions we had access to at the time. Chemotherapy and radiation therapy. The odds were slim. We sent out requests to several clinics. MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas responded. Come in for a consultation, and if everything looks right, we can take Emma's case. We opened a fundraiser on GoFundMe ourselves and started collecting money that way. We ran into a real obstacle. When you're fundraising on your own, it's very hard to get support from businesses and organizations. They need you to be under the umbrella of an established foundation. We weren't eager to do that for various reasons, but in the end, Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation took us under their care, and things got much easier for us. They took on the entire job of raising funds. 6 rounds of chemotherapy before surgery. That's what Emma had to go through, and 8 more after. There were 21 days between each chemotherapy block. Each block was 3 days long. During those 3 days, she received 5 different chemotherapy drugs. Then a few more days lying there flushing her system out, the whole time hooked up to an IV. After the very first round of chemo, Emma didn't eat for 7 days at all. She withdrew. She really turned inward. She started communicating less. and she was terrified of getting to know and befriending other children in the hospital because of everything that could happen there. She said, "I'm so afraid of getting attached to people and then losing them." Because Emma had involvement not just in the pelvic bone, but also in part of the hip socket joint. They had thought she would definitely need a prosthesis. They removed a significant portion of the pelvic bone, half the hip socket. But they didn't put in a prosthetic. The rehabilitation period was 6 months. She wasn't allowed to put any weight on her legs at all. Later, when she finally stood up and started walking, under the weight of her own body, the left side of her pelvis shifted upward, so one leg became shorter than the other. On top of the next 8 rounds of chemotherapy, she also had to complete a course of radiation therapy. There were so many side effects from all of it. The mucous membranes were destroyed. Skin was literally coming off. And going to the bathroom every single time after every chemo round was excruciating. Emma's blood counts would drop so dangerously low that we were forced to return to the hospital, where they gave her blood transfusions. We completed treatment, the full protocol. We finished the last part at MD Anderson in Houston. Full hope. Good prognosis from the doctors. We were heading home. It was September 2019. Emma desperately wanted to go back to school. It meant everything to her. 9th grade. But at first it had to be homebound instruction. She physically couldn't sit in a chair. She couldn't even sit down. And in February, during a routine CT scan, they found some changes in her spine. They took one biopsy and it was inconclusive. Not enough material. They couldn't say with certainty whether it was a relapse or not. We started reaching out to our clinics again, to Houston, to MD Anderson, based on this new scan, and they declined us. We stayed in the United States, had a second biopsy done. A medical board decided that it was, in fact, a relapse, and they started treatment with chemotherapy again. I told myself, we're treating, but we're still living. There's still something ahead of us. But when the treatment ended, that's when I got truly scared. What comes next? Thanks to another mother, one of the other cancer parents. She connected me with a specialist at Mayo Clinic in Rochester for a consultation. We weren't finding any malignant cells, and in that moment I thought, maybe this is the miracle, right? Maybe we actually have a chance. The doctors at Mayo said, well, she doesn't have anything showing up. The PET, CT, and imaging are clean. We're not going to treat something that isn't there. She was recovering from chemo. Somewhat more easily, it seemed like we had different goals ahead of us, connected to her limp, her leg, not related to the cancer anymore, but to the aftermath of the surgery. Then in early January, we all came down with COVID. Emma and I ended up in the hospital. A couple of days in, she started having pain in her lower back and hip. And that was it. And that pain never went away. We came home from the hospital. 2 weeks later, the pain still hadn't stopped. We drove back to the oncology center. They did a CT scan, and that's when they told us, that's it. Does this mean we're going home to die? When they told us the tumors were growing again, she asked them not to do anything more. She said, I don't want anything else, Mom. Please, I just want to go home. She had been in so much pain before that point too. But before, that pain had hope attached to it. She endured so much pain, but there were times when it got better. But when you come back and you understand there is no hope left, that is so much harder and heavier to carry. Every single day you wake up with the thought, what's going to happen today? Please just let today not be worse than yesterday. The pain management became absolutely critical. At a certain point, the medications simply weren't working. You couldn't even touch her. Imagine she's just lying there and you can't even touch her. Not just lift her. We're talking about basic things. The bathroom, wiping her down, changing her clothes. You couldn't touch her. Everything below the hip caused her unbearable pain. Thanks to a palliative care physician who always kept searching for options to help us, we ended up in a special procedure where they would destroy the nerves, eliminate all sensation below the waist. In plain terms, you're making your child a paraplegic. She would never walk again. She would lose all feeling in her lower body. But the pain was also supposed to go away. We talked about it with Emma. And imagine, this was yet another decision that was incredibly hard for her to agree to. We hoped it would really be like that, without the pain. It didn't work out the way we expected. She didn't fully lose sensation. She could still feel her legs, and the pain too. The nerves took a very long time to die. The whole process of the nerves dying was accompanied by so much. I think the doctors did everything that was humanly possible. Our cases were just so complicated that nothing worked for us the way it should have. From the moment we came home to the day she died, 8 months passed. Despite everything her body was going through, she wanted to be a girl, a beautiful girl, until the very end. It was so important to her to get her nails done. Her last manicure was 5 days before she died. Neon, acid colors, multicolored nails, and every single time she'd plan it out, talk through it with her nail tech, what the next set would look like, what color would come after, I'd sit there thinking, what next set? You're counting days no one knows how many of, and she's already planning 3 weeks ahead. The next one will be green and then something different after that. She was always deeply worried about other people. Always, never about herself. She was in pain, but she worried about causing pain and worry and discomfort to everyone around her, and she asked us to forgive her for it. She thought about me more than about herself. It was so important to her how I would be after she was gone. She said, I understand that I'm going to die, but what about you? I want so badly for you to be okay. I am so grateful to her nurse, Larissa, who was there with us, with Emma, right there beside her. And I felt calm. At some point, her condition was getting worse. It was clear it was coming soon. Her oxygen saturation was low. She started having trouble breathing, but Emmy was conscious, almost until the very end. Literally the last couple of hours, she wasn't speaking anymore, but she was still there. And the last night, the hospice staff offered to stay with me. I said no. I wanted to be alone with my daughter. I wasn't afraid. In the morning, she still said a few scattered words. The only thing I could see in her eyes was fear, like she understood in that moment what was happening. Though up until then, I had never hidden anything from her. When we had already come home, I told her what would happen, that she would die. But for her, it was something distant. She always said, I know I'll die, but that'll be in a year. She kept setting timelines for herself. She thought about it, but she related to it as something not here, not now. Something she still had to live long enough to reach. And she never, not once, said she wanted to die. The only thing she ever said in her very worst moments was, Mom, I'm so tired. I'll be honest. There were 2 feelings at once. A feeling of relief that this nightmare was over, and the second one, that she would never be here again. Emma and I talked about death. She asked me, very seriously, that when she died, I wouldn't grieve and suffer, but that I would keep living and be happy. And it wasn't just words. She needed a promise from me, a real promise. So I remember that promise. I understood. It was meant to pull me through. She made me promise that I would smile, that I would keep living, that I would experience the moments she didn't get to have, the The things she never got to do, I would do them for her. And I genuinely feel her with me, like she's nearby, like she's watching over me somewhere. And when I'm doing well, I feel it even more strongly. So I must not suffer. Because Emmy is watching, and she's waiting for me to keep my promise.